Good afternoon, everybody, and it's virtually me. So I'm probably on an aeroplane heading to Canada at the moment. But in the meantime, what I want to do is to give my traditional update for the 107th SBA conference. So without further ado, I'll dive straight into my first slide. So, what has been the situation in 2023? Well, you may remember in the slide that I showed before, there was this downward arrow for the first 4 months of 2023. And now you can see that it looks as though things have leveled out for UK production, as the blue arrow indicates. And actually, there's a feeling that we're potentially getting busier. There was some good news today that the economy has seen an inflation rate in the month of August of 6.7, I think it was. So actually, the ingredients that could encourage more growth, at least are starting to go in the right direction. And we're anticipating, or at the moment, it looks like this year is a minus 6.2% year versus last year. So let's just have a bit more information, shall we, with this slide. So this is some analysis that we've been doing for our corrugated customers in the UK. And it's a summary slide that gives a bit of background to what happened in 2021. And I've talked about that before. But most importantly, what happened in 2022 in the UK? Well, there was this minus 10.4% drop in volume, and mainly to do with stocks being held for internet packaging and FMCG goods. And the decline, which you saw was minus 6.2 year to date, we think the total decline for 2023 will be about minus 5.3%. That's our forecast. So that means there's going to be some growth in that last 3 or 4 months of 2023. But you can see, and our figures on the right-hand side are showing there's been a minus 15.7% drop over the last couple of years, over that 3-year period. So that's the UK. So what's happening in Europe then? And so mainland Europe, it's a similar picture, but a slightly more positive one, let's say. So the increase, as you can see, and just to remind you, the increase in volume in 2021 was plus 8.5%. So a higher growth because of the COVID recovery year. And the same situation with stocks being high in 2022, leading to a minus 5.9% drop for mainland Europe. So about half of what it was for the UK. And then what are we predicting for the rest of the year in Europe? About minus 3.8%. And as you can see, that total becomes about 10.9% drop over the last 3-year period and for the last 2 years. So again, about 60%, 66% of what it was for the UK. So let's just turn and remind ourselves, what are the factors that are affecting volume for 2023? The first one is inflation, and we know about energy bills. We also know that there's a large amount of the population across Europe who are struggling to cope. 25% of the working population struggling to cope. And I talked about the figures for people going to food banks across Europe, with something like nearly 10% of the population going to food banks. The second thing is the cost of living pressures, and that's been manifesting itself in the retail sector, where people have been purchasing more limited list discounter products and switching away from private labels. So private label are moving to own label products, and much smaller size baskets of goods being bought. And then the third thing was the supply chain costs that continue to rise, and all because of the Ukrainian war and the legacy of energy cost rises. So let's but I know last time people were really quite depressed with my presentation, so I wanted to give a bit of optimism this time. So I can do, not least because I'm on a plane going to Canada, but here we go. So where do we believe there are great growth opportunities? And we'll talk a little bit about how we can release those. So where are they? Well, the first area is in chilled and ambient produce. And we've been seeing in our studies, both of the UK and of the European market, the opportunity for what we call punnets for ambient and chilled produce. And if you look on the left-hand side, you can see molded fiber packs that are punnets. If you look in the middle photograph, there's a much more traditional folding carton and some corrugated packs, which are in that punnet style. And then on the right-hand side, corrugated punnets. So small corrugated packs or small folding carton packs or small fiber packs in the chilled and ambient produce market. And chilled and ambient produce is fruit and vegetables, but it's also meat, poultry, and fish. And those areas are being encouraged to move away from plastics and move into fiber products. We'll come back to that in a bit more detail. So a second market that's doing well, and if you look at how was this market, the beer and soft drinks market back in 2015, an awful lot of plastic, and it was either shrink wrap plastic or it was those high cone rings on beer and soft drinks. If you look at the right-hand side, that's a much more typical view and a big change. You'll notice the change. A lot more fiber being used, significant amount of multi-packs being used now, but also corrugated both in microflute and in traditional corrugated with intermediate flute or with fine flute. And what are the other markets that are moving away from plastic and moving into fiber packaging? Well, the cleaning and laundry market, and again, look at the photograph on the left-hand side, 2015, lots of PP bottles, polypropylene bottles, and lots of those plastic containers, those tubs that had capsules in them. Now look at the market on the right-hand side, the scene for laundry, cleaning and laundry products, much more fiber being used, much more fiber. And probably the biggest prize of all, where the plastic substitution has got big potential for punnets, is in this area, which is for the frozen and chilled products area to move away from plastic tubs. You can see on the right-hand side, that's a tub that Unilever are using, and you can see that the banner on there, 93% less plastic being used in that pack. The two middle packs, one is a molded fiber pack, and the one on the right-hand side, the stacked up three of those trays, they're high-sided machine erect trays with lidding material, and that is being produced around Europe, both the UK and around the rest of Europe, using either cartonboard material or corrugated in fine flute or microflute, and all of them to replace tubs. And we reckon that there's something like 1 million tons of fibre a year potential alone in this market. And just to give you an idea, the UK is a 2 million ton fibre market. So it's equivalent to half a year's worth of UK corrugated consumption. So just to recap back on what are the prospects for corrugated in 2023? Well, volume demand has been reduced again, and has it leveled out? It potentially has, and in which case it may well be that we're on the up for the next 3 or 4 months. Value for sure has been eroded, and I've been hearing stories everywhere about a high amount of competition going on and business changing hands, but for much lower prices, and profitability is under pressure. But in the medium term, corrugated, because of its excellent flexibility and its ability to satisfy all retailing needs, so not just bricks and mortar, but also internet packaging, gives great potential. And the environmental pressures are rising more and more. Consumers are pressurizing brand owners to make decisions to move away from plastics and move into fiber. And I showed a number of those products that have moved, the Procter & Gamble packs and the Walker's crisp packs as two classic examples. So plastic replacement is a constant and consistent opportunity for the corrugated industry. And so the rallying call is, let's go design and invent new products. And I know the theme of this and the next two conferences is about how we can design our way and invent our way into new opportunities for corrugated. So that's what I have to say. And I'm give you a little wave from my aeroplane, 35,000 feet up in the air, and just to say thank you very much for that. And I look forward to seeing you all in person at the next conference. Thanks very much. Bye.